So good morning, everybody. I'm here with you in the Mediterranean Garden in San Diego State University. This is one of the most amazing places in the whole university. This has a lot of plants from around the world and definitely is my favorite place. Here you can see often a lot of students having lunch or just prepping for their exams. There has a lot of activity. It's a communal place, and also the history of this place is amazing because a lot of professors team up with some staff to create this amazing place. So we have Mike Simpson, Pat Abbott, and Barbara Frederick, who they are all emeritus professors now. So they came up with this brilliant idea, and they represent, this garden represents places from the Mediterranean climates. So we have plants from 5 different Mediterranean regions around the world. So I'm gonna guide you through them. And the first one is going to be the Mediterranean Basin, which is in the other side of the world. And we have places from Australia, from California, from Chile, and from South Africa. This place is amazing because it offers a lot of space for birds, for native animals, and it's very important to preserve. We are in the Mediterranean Basin region. This area encapsulates the Mediterranean Basin. This is Europe, Africa, North Africa, and also the southern part of Europe, as well as a small portion of Asia. So this is a place, and we have colder winters with a rainy season, just the same as we have in California. And also we are going to have hot summers. That's what distinguishes the Mediterranean climates. And these plants are well suited for our environment as well. So the ones from the Mediterranean Basin can grow in California. That's why some of them have become invasive species in California. The good thing about these plants is that they are drought tolerant, and some of them are cultivars, and we eat these plants. So I'm going to show you some of the plants that I want you to learn. Over here we have a beautiful tree from the Ericaceae family. This has beautiful, beautiful fruits. It produces a fruit that looks like strawberry, so that's called the strawberry tree. That's the common name. But the Latin name or scientific name is Arbutus unedo. And that's distributed mainly in Europe. This tree is actually very emblematic for Spain, and it's found in the flag of Madrid, and also you can find it in Madrid. There is a sculpture with a bear and a strawberry tree. The fruits are edible, and this plant has tiny, tiny flowers. Let's find one group of flowers. Over here you can see some flowers that are in an orange shape. This is typical of this group. Tiny flowers, beautiful in orange shape. And the fruit has this papillose surface. This surface is not smooth. It's called papillose. So this fruit is a basate fruit. So it's a very important plant for feeding different types of insects and also some hummingbirds. Okay, now let's take a look to this plant. Over here we have another plant. The common name is Pride of Madeira, Echium fasticum or candy canes. This is actually a very important plant in Portugal, and it produces some astonishing flowers, the bluish or lilac type of flowers, the color, and the inflorescence, that's a bunch of flowers all together, will grow at the top of here. And we'll see those coming at the end or later in the spring. This plant is just starting to produce the leaves. This plant is deciduous. That means that it drops the leaves through the winter and it starts producing it again early in the spring. So it looks a little bit like not doing great, but that's the reason why. So it's just starting to awake. And you could see all of these beautiful leaves in here. This is the pomegranate. Pomegranate, it's the word, it's like a pom with grana, which means seeds. A fruit that looks like an apple with a lot of seeds inside. So these fruits, if you have eaten them, are red, and inside of this fruit, you'll find a lot of seeds. And the seeds, the outside of the seeds, the seed coat, is the one that is actually, the epidermis of that seed is the one that is getting swollen, and that's the thing that we enjoy the most. In this plant, in these fruits, we can find a lot of antioxidants. So it's a very good, nutritious food that you can eat. And you can grow it in California as well. So this is the pomegranate, and the species, the Latin name is Punica granatum. Let's do this plant over here, which is the quince plant. We are here with the quince. This plant belongs to the Rosaceae family. So Rosaceae have plums, they have apples, but they also have quinces. And you could look at this beautiful flower. They are grown as ornamental, but they are actually edible. This looks like a pear, between a pear and an apple. Some people think that they are hybrids, but they are actually not hybrids. This plant grows mainly in the Asian part, but it has been grown around the Mediterranean region, and that was a very important species in the Roman Empire. So it's a beautiful plant from the Rosaceae family, Cydonia oblongata. That's a Latin name. I want to introduce you to this beautiful plant. This is Limonium sinuatum from the Plumbaginaceae family. This is also known as the wavy leaf lavender. It looks slightly like a lavender, but it doesn't really smell. And it has these peppery type of flowers that last forever. So it's almost, you can hear the noises that they produce. They are beautiful plants from the Mediterranean garden as well. Around this plant, we have other plants that are also very unique. They are from the Canary Islands. And these are the aeoniums. All of these plants, you can look at some of these plants over here. They have the inflorescence. They produce this tight group of flowers, the inflorescence, and all of these leaves at the top. They are adapted to very drought conditions. One of my favorites, though, is this aeonium at the back this way. Let's take a look. Let me make sure I don't step on plants. This one is one of the largest aeonium. This is Aeonium arboreum, and it's just starting to produce this majestic inflorescence. We are by the dragon tree, Dracaena draco, from the Asparagaceae family. This is an amazing tree, and the name of the dragon tree comes from the mythology, and it's related to Hercules killing a dragon with 100 heads. So the story says, or the mythology says, that Hercules was given with 12 challenges, and the 11th was to kill this dragon in order to get 3 golden apples from the Hesperides garden. And then he killed the dragon, and by doing that, all of the blood drops that fell into the garden actually arise or gave origin to the dragon trees. We can see the dragon fruits in here, and they are coming from the top. So this is an inflorescence that forms a lot of fruits. This plant is a monocotyledon. Also, the mythology says that the blood of the dragon is still running inside of the tree. So if you cut this tree, but please don't do that, you will see the blood coming out. And that's because this tree produces a sap that is red in color. And it's beautiful, a beautiful tree. Now I would like to introduce you to this beautiful tree, majestic oak. This is a cork oak, and this is or belongs to the family Fagaceae, and the Latin name is Quercus suber. One of the most important, economically important features of this tree is that the bark is being used to make the wine corks, and so the cork cambium is producing this really thick, dense cork, and people harvest them. They harvest it by peeling some sections and allowing the tree to recover after a period of time. So if you have a lot of trees, you can just peel some small sections and the oaklands will recover. So they can use this cork also for flooring or as a corkboard. That's a good one to remember. So they produce acorns, but right now we cannot see any of them because the season is off. This is a tree that is distributed mainly in Spain. So for Spain is a very important income or source of income. This palm is the date palm. This is Phoenix dactylifera from the Araceae family. You could see the leaves produce these walks on top that help them to be drought tolerant. Also at the end of the leaves we have these sharp ends, the sharp apexes, and they are kind of spinose, so they can hurt. The venation in this plant is parallel, and they produce this beautiful fruit, delicious fruit, the dates that we eat. They are edibles. They were and have been a very important source of food for humans, but importantly for the Mesopotamian culture. They grew these palms, and the date has a lot of fiber, but also a lot of nutrition and sugars, and it's delicious. So you can make them in cakes or just eat them as they are. The inflorescence it has a lot of tiny white flowers. They will be over there at the center. So we are in the California region right now. This is the California province. And this, as the other regions, the Mediterranean regions around the world, have a very important and abundant number of the species. So of all of the species that we have around the world, the 20% of the species are in this province or in these regions around the world, even though only 2% of the cover in land is what they occupy. In the California floristic region, we have around 6,000 species of plants, and around 2,000 of them are native or endemic to California. The California Floristic Province encompasses California, a big chunk of California, but also south of Oregon and the north of Baja California. This again is going to be dominated, the climate is going to be distinctive or characterized by rainy winters and hot summers. These plants are drought tolerant as well. In this region, we're gonna find mainly plants from California, but we're also having other plants intermingled. The first one that I want to present you is Cholsia californica. This is the California poppy. It's beautiful, it's golden. The California poppy is actually golden, and the petals are falling because it has been fertilized, and now we are gonna have the fruits. The fruits get produced, they are dry fruits, and they will disperse the seeds. Really dark black seeds. This plant is emblematic to California. That's the plant of California. And it won the first place, but it competed against this majestic plant, Rhamnea coulteri. This has the biggest flowers in our region. It's amazing, an amazing flower. And if you look closely, right here, we have tons of pollen producing structures, the anthers, right here, producing a lot of these dust, the pollen. Both of these species belong to the Papaveraceae family. This was in the second place when people was nominating what plant to represent California. But it has won some other awards. In the UK, actually has won an horticulturist competition. This Rhamnea coulteri, actually, to be able to germinate, you have to subject it to some treatments because the seeds will germinate after a fire. But once that the plant is established, it can grow and propagate. So if we look closely at the bottom of this plant, you could see how they propagate. And what they use is that they produce these underground stems that help them to propagate clonally. So the same plant genetically can be found all around the garden. Another plant that is really, really impressive is this type of salvia, Salvia espathacea. This one, it belongs to the family Lamiaceae. And look at these beautiful inflorescence. These are arranged in an verticillaster is the proper name for the inflorescence. But you could see how all of these flowers come from this point. And these flowers are, the symmetry of this is bilateral. That means that you can only find one axis of division or plane of symmetry. If you look closely at this plant, at this flower, at the point of it, you'll find the anthers and you'll find the stigma. Right here, the pistil. This plant is beautiful. It has a beautiful smell. It's very aromatic. It produces tons of oils, and you can find them in the sages. The sages are distinctive because they produce this very relaxing smell. They produce the oils in the surfaces of these trichomes. So the surface or the epidermis of these plants have these hairs that produce the oils. One of the things that will help you to distinguish the different sages, or actually to identify that that's a sage, is by looking at the stems. The stems of these plants are not rounded, but are more square, the square type. And the leaves, the arrangement of the leaf is opposite, and it's something that we call it decussate, which means that one set of leaves are gonna come from in one direction, and the other type of opposite leaves will come in the opposite direction, an 90 angle degree difference. So this is a beautiful sage with a very white flowers. I mean, flowers, but also the leaves are very white. Now let's take a look to this other plant. This is another type of sage. This is Salvia clevelandii. And it has, again, the arrangement of the flowers is in this verticillaster. So that's something that they have in common, right? So you can identify that, and also the arrangement of the leaves are similar. but the sizes of the leaves are very different. Over here, this is another plant that is very beautiful. This is Malacothamnus fasciculatum. Fasciculatum is from the Malvaceae family. This flower, if we look closely to the flower right here, we can see that the arrangement of the stamens are tight right here. So this is distinctive of this family, Malvaceae. They are also very aromatic and they attract a lot of pollinators, same as the sages. The sages attract a lot of pollinators. Now let's take a closer look to this big tree over here. This is Quercus lobata, or valley oak. This tree is majestic. It is deciduous, that means that it drops the leaves. And the new leaves are just forming, and they are producing with the rains during the winter here in California. This Quercus lobata needs a lot of water, so most of our oaks grow close to rivers or bodies of water. And if you plant them, you need to water them. They produce a lot of leather. So look at this leather here. All of these leaves just fell, and that's actually very good to keep them, to protect the roots, and to help acquiring the nutrients back to these trees and to the nearby plants. So this is very good to leave as a natural process all of the foliage that falls. Let's take a close look to these leaves so you can see the shape of the leaves. So look at this leaf. It's very different. I want you to remember, because we're going to be looking at a different leaf and you can compare them. But the margins are entire. That means that we don't have anything sticking out, like we don't have teeth or any type of serrulation, so they are entire. But the division of the leaf is very important. So they have lobes, right, that will help you to identify this plant. Also, if you look again at the bark of this tree, the bark of this tree compared to the suber, the oak cork, it will be very distinctive. So that's another point to remember. This is Umbellularia californica from the Lauraceae family. This looks like a laurel, and actually you could use it to cook. This is even better. This smells so good. It's a lot better. And if you're into cooking, this is the secret. You could use it. This is a native plant, and it produces some really nice flowers. It's just started to produce flowers at the top, and they have this cluster of flowers, an inflorescence of white flowers. The native tribes use them for cooking and for other purposes. Let's take a look to another plant. We have a dove, some doves running away, poor things. We'll give them back their place in a second after introducing this plant, Rus ovata. This is Rus ovata from the Anacardiaceae family. We have two plants that are relative. The other one is Rus integrifolia. Rus ovata, you can identify them because the margins of the leaves are entire, and the leaves actually look more entire. The shape is more like an egg shape. The inflorescence of this plant are found at the tips right here. So these are all of the flowers, and they will produce these berries. So these are called actually some type of lemonade berries or sugar berries. And you can put them on your beverage to give this scent, like just a lemonade that you can prepare. You could add the berries, but don't eat the seeds. Very important, don't eat the seeds. The Anacardiaceae family has some poisonous substance. So another member of this family is poison oak. And as you know, as the name says, it's poisonous. And that's because of these molecules that they can produce. And I believe that's the orange oil. Let's walk this way to see another plant that is in flower. Over here we have this type of cercis. This cercis produces this massive amount of flowers. They belong to the family Fabaceae. So the peas or your green beans belong to that family. So they produce a fruit that's called the legumes. And the legumes are found right there, right here, at the top of here. So this is the fruit. It's a dry fruit. When you open it, it will open naturally, but you'll find the seeds inside. These have been already eaten. So we have a lot of pots on the floor. This is a majestic tree that a lot of people use it as an ornamental plant in the gardens. So let's keep walking, and I'm going to introduce you to another native oaks. So oaks, we have around 700 species of oaks around the world, and in California we have around 20. This is one that is very important for us because this is one native species of our region. So it has a very restricted distribution. This is Engelmann oak, or Quercus engelmannii, of the Fagaceae family. The ages of this leaf is also entire, but in comparison to the lobata, Quercus lobata, the leaf is not divided. If we're lucky, we're gonna find some of the catkins. These little structures over here are the male flowers. They will produce the pollen, and they are called the catkins. That's the type of inflorescence. And the pollen will land in a small flower. It's very small that we cannot often see it in the oaks. But when they mature, they produce the acorns. Acorns are very important for the tribal communities. And I'm going to tell you more when we visit the next oak. Let's walk over here to see one of the most amazing plants. This is Arctostaphylos. This Arctostaphylos belongs to the family Ericaceae. And if you remember something, if I want you to remember something, is that these guys have a flower in orange shape that is the urceolate. If you take a close look, the orange shape of the minute flowers is just really nice and cute. And the small insects will get inside, but also some big insects with a very pointy or very small structures can get in, like some butterflies or some hummingbirds also have been documented to pollinate these type of plants. Look at the stem of these plants. Most Arctostaphylos, these Arctostaphylos, have red bark. The red bark in the stem is just really, really nice to look at. This plant is actually a rare plant, and this might be endangered. So it's really good that we're cultivating it here in our garden in San Diego. This is another type of palm. This palm actually grows in some oases in Baja California, in northern Baja California. And I believe they go all the way to the Mid-Peninsula. This is the bluefin palm, or the Mexican blue palm. And look at the very large leaves. So each of these is one leaf, and they also produce inflorescence. So the palms grow in these oases, surrounded by deserts, but they really need access to water. It is a monocot. The next plant, this is a very important and a dear friend of mine. This is Quercus agrifolia, or coast live oak. This plant is another oak that belongs to the family Fagaceae. And this plant, you're gonna differentiate them from the other oaks that we have seen, because the leaves, the margin of the leaves have these little teeth, and they are sharpy, a little bit sharpy, they don't hurt. But then the leaves are, some people describe them as cups, little cups, or little bowls, right? Because they are not flat. If you look at the ground over here, we have tons of seedlings that just germinated from this mom, from this tree. Similar as the other oaks, the male inflorescence are the catkins, and this plant will form the acorns. This plant is very important source of food for some tribal groups. Some Native Americans are still eating them, and they ground the acorns on metates, these rocks, and they form archaeological areas. They form these metates that now some of them are protected, and they ground and grind, and you can see in nature sometimes you can find big rocks with holes, tiny holes or deep holes. Those are signs that these have been used to grind the acorns. Then they can produce them to make cakes or cookies or anything. You can make them in any type of food that you want and replace them from, instead of using wheat flour, you could use acorn instead. Quercus agrifolia, beautiful tree. We are by this tree, not this one, but this one here. This is the Castanospermum australe. This belongs to the family Fabaceae. And as I mentioned before, same as the Cercis occidentalis, this is actually a plant that fixes nitrogen. A lot of the Fabaceae, the members of this family, Fabaceae, fix nitrogen. So they interact with some bacteria, nitrogen-fixing bacteria, in the roots, and they can process the nitrogen in a more efficient way. So it's a very important plant. As the other members that I mentioned of this family, they produce the legumes, and this is the legume that will separate, right? It's formed by one ovary, and it has two dehiscence, two lines of dehiscence, and at maturity, this is a dry fruit, so it's very dry. This plant has gigantic seeds inside. So the legume, the fruit, has these gigantic seeds. Native people of Australia actually process the seeds to make flour, but also it's poisonous, so you really need to know how to prepare it. Interestingly, this plant has some components or compounds that are used to treat cancer and other illness. So it's a very promising plant that we have to keep an eye on. This is the Castanospermum australe. Let's walk over there, but I want to bring this with me. So the plants that we find in Australia, some of the more iconic plants are the eucalyptus. This plant right here, it's an eucalyptus tree. You could see that many eucalyptus have this type of resprouting here at the bottom of these roots. If the tree has been disturbed or it has been subjected to fire, they can resprout by these lignotubers. So these protuberances here, or protudens, are the lignotubers. And the leaves, if you look carefully, the leaves of this plant from the lignotubers, from this new growth, it's very different to the leaves of the mature tree. So they have different shapes when the leaves are young, or when the tree is young versus when the tree is mature. But that's true if the tree is producing new growth from an injury. So this is the eucalypts. Eucalypts are, the Eucalyptus genus has around 700 species as well. All of them, or the majority of them, are native to Australia. And few of them are in the surrounding regions of Australia. So this is, right now we are in the Australian region. So this is a type of acacia. Acacias are also, they belong to the family Fabaceae. And if you remember something about that, is that they produce the legumes. The fruits are in legumes. And all of those structures in the tree, right here, all of these are the legumes. And inside we will have the seeds. But these have already dropped the seeds. So this is how they will look. And we can find one of these seeds right here. I'm finding one of these seeds for you guys right there. So it's another type of legume, a nitrogen fixing plant. This is Eucalyptus erythrocharis. This is another species of eucalyptus. It's a beautiful plant that peels the bark. You see how it naturally peels the bark? And it reveals this very beautiful stem, this part of the bark as well, the smooth part of the bark. This eucalyptus and any eucalyptus belong to the family Myrtaceae. This plant has very long leaves and narrow and long, and the petioles, the stalk of the leaves, as well as the branches, are red. And the fruits of these are going to form a calyptra. Let's find quickly some of the fruits at reach. Right here we have some. So this fruit will have a cap, a calyptra, that is red when it's immature. And when it matures, it drops this cap and it reveals beautiful yellow stamens all around. So what we see right here is this fruit that is almost mature, that has dropped all of the stamens, right? So all of the stamens. The style of this fruit will be right here. And that's one of the very distinctive things of this family, or of this genus. It has a lot of stamens, and it has the fruits in a calyptra, as I described it before. Inside of this fruit we'll have tons of tiny seeds, and they can produce new plants. So this is Grevillea. If you come close to this area, so you can take a look to the inflorescence. A lot of pollinators are visiting this plant right now. All of these bees. This is Apis mellifera. Apis mellifera is a non-native, but is well adjusted to this environment and these flowers. So these flowers, or this plant is Grevillea, and this is an Australian plant that is very drought tolerant. Another plant that is very common in the family Myrtaceae, the same family of the eucalyptus that we explained before, is this bottle brush. And this bottle brush, if you look at the flowers, as I was explaining with Eucalyptus erythrocharis, it has these very showy stamens. So the stamens are the ones that are attracting the bees. So these have red stamens that are quite long, and each of these will be one flower. So let me just pull it for you. I will put one flower in this inflorescence. So this is just one, you see? But many flowers are put together in this, and that gives the appearance of a bottle brush that you could use. You cannot really use for that. We are now at the African region. So a lot of these plants come from the south part of Africa, and this is one of the aloes. We have a lot of aloes in this part of the garden. So this is Aloe marliotii, and you can see each of these are the leaves, which are succulent leaves. So they store a lot of water, but also the leaves are spinous. So the ends of these leaves is not entire. We have a lot of these tooths that are spinous. These are the inflorescence, which are majestic arrangement of flowers. And at the bottom, you can even see some of the bees getting pollinated or pollinating this plant. Over here, we have one of my favorite plants, because this is an edible plant. You can cook it and eat it, or eat it in salads. This is also called elephant plant. And you could see the stem of this plant is really, really thick and succulent. The leaves are more globose, so more spherical. And the stems, these branches, are lilac or purple. That's the word that I'm looking for, purple. Let's go to the next one over here. So most of the plants that I have explained before belong to the angiosperm. So they are flowering plants. All of them produce flowers. This one over here is unique in the sense that it produces cones. It's called Encephalartos transvenosus. And it has these compound leaves, right? So we have here this axis, the rachis, and all of these leaflets coming from this leaf. At the center, we have the cones, the microstrobilized, that produce the pollen. And the pollen will get dispersed. This plant is dioecious, meaning that the sexes are in two different houses, from the Greek dio, or two, and oikos, house. So the sexes are in two houses. And this is male, and we don't have a female. Let's go to this one. On top, we have this tree. This is not technically from the Mediterranean region of Africa, but this is more a tropical tree. But it's amazing because it produces these gigantic fruits, and we have to be careful because these fruits can get very heavy, several pounds, and when they fall, they can injure people. But they are very majestic trees. This is, the common name is the sausage tree. Caligia is the genus, and it's a monotypic genus, only one species in this genus. The leaves are also compound, meaning that we have one axis and several leaflets. So we're here at the Mediterranean garden still, but this area has a mix of species. Right here we see Crassula ovata, which is from the Crassulaceae family, but the one that I really want to show you is this one. This is not technically from the Mediterranean garden, but it's an impressive plant that I really think that deserves to be explained. This is Pereschia grandifolia. This is a cactaceae, a cactus. The cactus, most people think that they don't have leaves, but they do have leaves. Some of them produce the leaves as the normal leaves that we know, foliar leaves. But the spines, these really large spines, are modified leaves that are very, very dangerous. This is a dangerous plant. I won't recommend you to try to touch it because they have also some substances at the tip of these spines that make you very uncomfortable. The flowers are beautiful and pink, and a lot of people grow this plant as an ornamental plant. This is of the Cactaceae family, as I was saying, and one of the things that distinguish the plants of the Cactaceae family is the aerial. So the aerial is this region, these protuberations right here that have the spines, and they have also trichomes, these little hairs, and they have an active mitotic division region. So a lot of divisions are happening right there, and we can also have the leaves coming out of this region. This is a fruit that got stuck in that spine. This will be the mature fruit, and they are very juicy, you see? They are succulent plants, very, very juicy. And they will have some, I wanted to open it, but I'm gonna do a mess, or make a mess. They have dark black seeds. Let's go and take a look to other cactus of the Chilean region. We are now at the Chilean region of the garden, and these three plants here are actually cactus, such as the Pereschia, but they lack these foliar type of leaves. They only have the spines, and this is the San Pedro cactus. Over there we have the citrus cactus, the Sirius cactus, and this is another type of cactus as well. If you look closely, you'll find the aerial in this region with a lot of tiny spines, very different spines compared to the Pereschia that we just looked at. The difference is that these plants are columns. They are columnar cacti, and they have photosynthetic stems. If you look at this is the stem, and it's photosynthetic. They have the aerials, and they will produce this massive, large, beautiful white flower that is pollinated by moths at night, and some bats also can pollinate this type of plants. I want you to look now at this plant. We're going back to the African part of the garden, because I want you to compare the tree the cactus that we just explained against this one. This is Euphorbia ingens from the Euphorbiaceae family. These plants also look columnar, and these, however, are not aerial, so therefore they are not cactus. A lot of people get confused and they think that these are cacti. These are not cactus. They are succulents, but they come from Africa, and they are from a totally different, unrelated family. So this is an example of convergence evolution. They produce very tiny flowers, and at the top of this plant, you can see some of the fruits that are getting mature and ready. These plants produce a latex, so the members of this family of Verbiaceae, when you cut them, they will produce a latex, white substance that if you touch it, you will get the poison. These plants are not edible, and you can get serious injured if you eat it. And if you, for example, open this plant and touch your eyes with the latex, you could be blind. So it's a very toxic plant, but you can touch it just like that. It's safe and it's beautiful. And I want you to remember the convergence evolution between euphorbias and among some of the cacti that we have. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. And remember, we just went through the 5 regions in the Mediterranean climate, or with Mediterranean climate around the world. And this is a majestic place that you can come and enjoy and maybe make your homework in this area. How about that? Once that we resume activities. Okay, see you later.